I watched my son-in-law Marcus throw his head back and laugh as I pulled into their driveway in my 2009 Honda Civic. The paint faded and the bumper held on with duct tape. What he didn't know was that underneath my modest lifestyle lay a secret that would change everything. Hidden in my investment portfolio were 50,000 shares of Tesla stock purchased at $12 each in 2012, now worth over $15 million. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Thanksgiving invitation had arrived via text from my daughter Emma, casual and expectant as always. "Mom, dinner's at 4. Marcus is grilling the turkey this year, so prepare yourself for his ego trip." I'd smiled at her warning, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to overhear that crisp November afternoon in Riverside Heights, California. My Honda coughed to a stop in front of their pristine suburban home, the kind of house that screamed young professional success with its perfectly manicured lawn and imported stone driveway. Marcus had insisted on buying in this upscale neighborhood when he got his promotion to regional sales manager at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, despite the mortgage payment that left them living paycheck to paycheck. Through the living room window, I could see Marcus gesturing animatedly to someone, his expensive suit jacket draped over the back of their leather sectional. I'd barely stepped out of my car when his voice carried across the yard, pitched loud enough that the neighbors could hear. "Would you look at that piece of junk Vivian just pulled up in? I swear, that car is held together with prayers and duct tape. Who drives a 15-year-old Honda in 2024? It's embarrassing." I froze with my casserole dish in hand, pretending to adjust my purse while I listened. The front door was slightly ajar, and Marcus's voice carried clearly through the autumn air. "I keep telling Emma we need to stage an intervention. Her mother is living like some kind of bag lady, driving around in that rattletrap when she could afford something decent. Hell, my signing bonus last month was more than that car's worth." A deeper voice responded, one I recognized as Marcus's brother Derek, who worked in tech sales in San Francisco. "Maybe she likes the old car. Some people get attached." Marcus snorted with derision. Attached? Derek, the woman worked as a high school chemistry teacher for 35 years and retired with what? A pension that barely covers cat food? She's not attached, she's cheap. Embarrassingly, pathetically cheap. My hands tightened on the ceramic dish. 35 years of teaching had indeed provided a modest pension, but Marcus had no idea about the investment strategy I'd developed during those decades, starting with small purchases of what seemed like risky technology stocks. "You should see her apartment," Marcus continued, warming to his favorite topic of my apparent financial failures. "Emma dragged me there last Christmas. Furniture from the 80s, no flat-screen TV, still using one of those ancient desktop computers? The woman lives like it's 1995. Derek's laughter carried a note of uncomfortable uncertainty. Maybe she's saving money for something important. Saving for what? She's 72 years old. What's she gonna do, buy a sports car? Marcus's laughter held genuine cruelty. "The woman clips coupons, Derek. Actual paper coupons. She brings them to restaurants. Last month, Emma told me Vivian used a buy one, get one free coupon at Applebee's and then tipped the waitress $2 on a $40 meal." The story was accurate, though Marcus had missed the context entirely. I'd taken my neighbor's granddaughter out for her birthday dinner, and the teenager had specifically requested Applebee's. The coupon had been her suggestion, and I'd tipped appropriately on the full amount, not the discounted total. "Here's the thing that kills me," Marcus continued, his voice rising with the enthusiasm of someone who'd found a captive audience. "Emma feels guilty about our lifestyle because her mother lives like a church mouse. We can't enjoy the nice things we've earned because Emma thinks we're being insensitive to her poor mother's situation." This was news to me. Emma had never mentioned feeling guilty about their spending habits, though I'd noticed her defensive explanations whenever they made significant purchases. Last week, Emma wanted to skip our anniversary trip to Napa because she thought we should visit her mother instead. Visit her in that depressing little apartment and pretend we're having fun watering down the orange juice to make it last longer. I'd never watered down orange juice in my life, but the exaggeration was typical Marcus. Every minor economy became evidence of desperate poverty in his version of events. The woman probably has maybe $50,000 total to her name, Marcus declared with absolute confidence. Social Security, teacher's pension, maybe some tiny savings account earning 0.01% interest. She's one medical emergency away from being completely broke. Derek's voice carried a note of sympathy I was sure Marcus found irritating. That's rough, man. Getting old without money must be terrifying. It's her own fault, Marcus replied without hesitation. She had 35 years to plan for retirement and chose to live paycheck to paycheck instead. No investments, no property ownership, no financial planning whatsoever. Just stumbling toward poverty and expecting Emma to feel sorry for her. The casual cruelty of his assessment took my breath away. Marcus had constructed an entire narrative about my financial situation based on superficial observations and his own assumptions about teachers' earning potential. You know what the real problem is? Marcus continued, apparently just getting warmed up. Emma inherited her mother's cheap gene. She wants to help poor mommy out financially, as if throwing good money after bad will somehow teach a 72-year-old woman fiscal responsibility. A plate clinked in the kitchen, and I heard Emma's voice call out from inside the house. "Marcus, can you check if Mom's here yet? I thought I heard a car door." "Yeah, the jalopy-mobile just pulled up," Marcus shouted back, not bothering to lower his voice. "Should I go help her carry in whatever sad contribution she's made to dinner? Please tell me it's not another green bean casserole from a can." My face burned with humiliation and anger. The casserole I'd spent 3 hours preparing from scratch suddenly felt heavy in my hands. Every careful economy I'd practiced for decades, every deliberate choice to live below my means, had been twisted into evidence of failure in Marcus's narrative. Derek must have noticed my car through the window because his voice suddenly carried warning. "Marcus, I think she might be able to hear you." "So what if she can?" Marcus replied with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences for his opinions. "Maybe it's time someone told her the truth about how pathetic her situation looks to the rest of us." I stood frozen in their driveway, holding my homemade casserole and listening to my son-in-law demolish my character for the entertainment of his brother. The Honda's engine ticked as it cooled, a modest, reliable sound that had carried me safely through 15 years of careful driving. Marcus had no idea that the woman he was mocking had watched Tesla's stock price climb from $12 to over $300 per share. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. He didn't know about the Nvidia shares I'd purchased in 2016 or the Apple stock I'd accumulated throughout the 2000s. He couldn't imagine that his cheap mother-in-law owned a diversified portfolio worth more than his annual salary multiplied by 50. But as I listened to his cruel laughter echo across the suburban afternoon, I realized that Marcus was about to learn something important about making assumptions. The game was about to change, and he had no idea what was coming. I straightened my shoulders and walked toward their front door, my expression carefully neutral. Time to let the Thanksgiving dinner unfold naturally while I processed everything I'd just heard. By the time this weekend was over, Marcus would understand that appearances could be deceiving in ways he'd never imagined. The doorbell rang through their house with expensive digital chimes, and I heard Emma's footsteps hurrying toward the entrance. Behind me, my faithful Honda sat in their driveway like evidence of financial failure, while inside my modest purse lay a smartphone containing brokerage apps that would have made Marcus's head spin. "Mom!" Emma opened the door with genuine warmth, her smile faltering slightly as she caught sight of my expression. "Are you okay? You look a little pale." "Just the autumn chill," I replied smoothly, stepping into their foyer with its imported marble tiles and crystal chandelier. "Something smells wonderful in there." Marcus appeared from the living room, his smile as artificial as their silk flower arrangements. "Vivian, so glad you could make it. I was just telling Derek about your classic car out there. They don't make them like that anymore." The mockery in his tone was barely concealed, but I met his gaze with steady calm. "No, they certainly don't. That Honda has been remarkably reliable over the years." "I bet it has," Marcus replied, his eyes already dismissing me as he turned toward the kitchen. "Well, dinner's almost ready. I hope you brought your appetite." I followed them into their open-concept living space, noting the luxury finishes and designer furniture that represented every dollar of their disposable income. Marcus and Emma had created a beautiful home, but one that existed on the edge of financial strain despite its expensive appearance. Derek stood near their granite-topped kitchen island, a tall man in his 40s with the slightly desperate smile of someone who'd witnessed an uncomfortable scene. He extended his hand with apologetic courtesy. "Mrs. Chen, right? I'm Derek, Marcus's brother. Emma's told me so much about you." "Please call me Vivian. It's nice to finally meet you, Derek." As we shook hands, I caught Derek glancing toward the window where my Honda sat in stark contrast to the BMW and Lexus parked beside it. His expression carried the same mixture of pity and discomfort I'd seen in Marcus's voice earlier. Emma bustled around the kitchen with nervous energy, arranging side dishes and checking the turkey's temperature. "Mom, can you believe Marcus decided to deep fry the turkey this year? I was terrified he was going to burn the house down." "The man knows his way around a fryer," Marcus declared, puffing out his chest with mock pride. "Though I have to admit, the equipment wasn't cheap. The whole setup cost more than some people spend on transportation." His pointed glance toward the window made his meaning clear. I was expected to feel ashamed of my modest vehicle while admiring his expensive hobby equipment. "Well, I'm sure it will be delicious," I replied evenly, settling onto one of their leather bar stools. "Emma, can I help with anything?" "Just relax, Mom. You've done enough work for one day." Emma's tone carried the careful consideration children use when they believe their parents are struggling financially. "That casserole looks amazing, by the way. Is it the same recipe you used to make when I was little?" "With a few improvements over the years," I said, watching Marcus roll his eyes at what he clearly perceived as my pathetic contribution to their gourmet meal. The conversation flowed around typical family topics while we waited for the turkey to finish cooking. Derek asked polite questions about my retirement, clearly fishing for details about my financial situation. Marcus interjected with helpful explanations about teachers' pensions and the challenges of fixed incomes. "The thing about retirement is that most people don't realize how expensive everything becomes," Marcus pontificated, opening a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Healthcare costs, inflation, property taxes if you're lucky enough to own property. It's a real struggle for people on limited incomes." His sympathetic tone was masterfully condescending, positioned as education for Derek's benefit, while ensuring I understood my place in their social hierarchy. "Fortunately, I've been relatively healthy," I replied calmly, "and I've always been careful about budgeting." "Careful is one way to put it," Marcus murmured, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Emma shot him a warning look that he ignored completely. The turkey timer chose that moment to interrupt the conversation, sending Marcus into performance mode as he prepared to retrieve his culinary masterpiece. The next 20 minutes involved elaborate preparations and commentary about proper frying techniques, oil temperatures, and the superiority of his method over traditional oven roasting. I sat quietly, observing the dynamics between Emma and Marcus. My daughter clearly loved her husband, but I noticed her subtle attempts to redirect his more offensive comments. She'd developed the exhausted patience of someone managing a difficult personality on a daily basis. Derek helped set the dining room table, which had been decorated with expensive linens and china that Emma probably used twice a year. Everything about the meal showcased their commitment to appearances, from the crystal stemware to the imported flower centerpiece. When we finally sat down to dinner, Marcus assumed the head of the table position and launched into a detailed description of his turkey preparation process. The food was indeed excellent, but his need for constant praise and validation made the meal feel like a performance rather than a family gathering. "So, Vivian," Derek said during a lull in Marcus's culinary commentary, "Emma mentioned you taught chemistry for 35 years. That must have been rewarding work." It was indeed. I loved watching students discover how the world works at a molecular level. Science education is so important, especially for young women entering STEM fields. Marcus nodded with patronizing approval. "Teaching is noble work, even if it doesn't pay much. I always tell people that teachers and public servants deserve our respect, even if they can't afford the same lifestyle as those of us in private industry." The comparison was deliberate and cruel, designed to establish hierarchy while maintaining plausible deniability about his intentions. The financial rewards were modest, I agreed, but the work itself was invaluable. I had students who went on to become doctors, engineers, research scientists. One of my former students is now developing battery technology for electric vehicles. "That's wonderful, Mom," Emma said warmly. "You always had such good relationships with your students." "Speaking of electric vehicles," Marcus interjected with obvious amusement, "have you ever considered upgrading to something more environmentally friendly, Vivian? I know budget constraints make it difficult, but maybe a used Prius or something more modern than that Honda?" The suggestion carried multiple layers of condescension. Environmental consciousness as social performance, the assumption that I couldn't afford better, and helpful guidance from someone who clearly knew better than I did about my own needs. "I've certainly considered various options," I replied carefully. "The Honda has been so reliable that it's hard to justify replacing something that still serves its purpose well." "Reliable, sure, but at some point, practicality becomes false economy," Marcus continued, warming to his expertise. "Maintenance costs on older vehicles, safety concerns, fuel efficiency. Sometimes spending money actually saves money in the long run." Derek nodded thoughtfully. "Marcus has a point. My girlfriend just traded in her 10-year-old car for a hybrid. The monthly payments are manageable, and she's saving a fortune on gas." "Monthly payments," I repeated quietly, as if the concept represented financial complexity beyond my understanding. "Exactly," Marcus seized on what he perceived as my confusion. "See, that's the beauty of modern financing options. You don't need cash up front to drive something decent. Even on a fixed income, there are programs designed to help seniors access better transportation." The patronizing tone made Emma wince visibly. She'd been watching the conversation with growing discomfort as her husband explained basic financial concepts to her mother like she was a child. "Marcus," Emma said with careful diplomacy, "I'm sure Mom has considered all her options. She's always been good with money management." "Of course she has," Marcus agreed quickly, realizing he'd overplayed his hand. "I just worry sometimes about safety and reliability, especially for someone driving alone. These older vehicles, you never know when they might break down." His concern was entirely fictional, but it served to reframe his criticism as caring rather than judgmental. The technique was smooth and practiced, suggesting this wasn't the first time he'd used manufactured worry to disguise his contempt. The conversation moved on to other topics as we finished the main course. Derek asked about my hobbies and activities, clearly hoping to steer towards safer ground. I mentioned reading, gardening, and occasional volunteer work at the local library. "That sounds lovely," Derek said with genuine warmth. "It's nice to stay active in retirement. Do you travel much?" "Not extensively," I replied. "I prefer staying close to home most of the time." Marcus couldn't resist jumping back in. "Travel is expensive, especially for someone on a budget. Emma and I just got back from that wine country trip I mentioned. Amazing experience, but definitely not cheap. We probably spent more in 3 days than most people budget for a month." The casual cruelty was breathtaking. Marcus had managed to highlight his own prosperity while emphasizing my supposed poverty, all disguised as casual conversation about vacation experiences. Emma's face flushed with embarrassment. "Marcus, could you help me clear the table? I think it's time for dessert." As they worked in the kitchen, Derek and I sat in awkward silence for a moment. I could see him processing everything he'd witnessed, trying to reconcile his brother's behavior with basic human decency. "He means well," Derek said finally, though his tone suggested he didn't entirely believe it himself. "I'm sure he does," I replied diplomatically. What Derek didn't know, what none of them knew, was that their expensive wine country weekend had cost less than the daily dividend income from my Tesla holdings. While Marcus bragged about spending $3,000 in 3 days, my portfolio had generated nearly twice that amount in passive income during the same period. As Emma and Marcus returned with dessert, I listened to more commentary about their lifestyle choices, financial priorities, and helpful suggestions for how people on limited budgets could still enjoy life's pleasures. Every word reinforced Marcus's fundamental assumption that I was a financial failure whose opinions about money deserved no serious consideration. But as I sat at their expensive dining room table, surrounded by the trappings of their leveraged lifestyle, I was calculating something Marcus couldn't imagine. The numbers that mattered weren't the cost of their furniture or the price of their wine. The numbers that mattered were hidden in investment accounts that had been growing steadily for over a decade. By the time I left their house that evening, Marcus had made his position crystal clear. I was an object of pity, a cautionary tale about poor financial planning, an embarrassment to be managed rather than respected. What he didn't realize was that he'd just provided me with all the motivation I needed to show him exactly how wrong his assumptions could be. The woman he'd spent the evening mocking was about to teach him a lesson about appearances, assumptions, and the danger of underestimating people based on superficial observations. The Honda started immediately, as it always did, and I drove home through the quiet suburban streets while processing everything I'd heard. Marcus thought he understood my story, but he'd only seen the carefully constructed surface I'd presented to the world. Tomorrow, that was going to change. The drive home from Emma's house gave me 43 minutes to process what I'd witnessed and plan my response. Marcus had revealed not just his contempt for my lifestyle choices, but his fundamental misunderstanding of who I was and what I'd accomplished over 30 decades of careful financial planning. My modest apartment in Oakwood Gardens reflected the same intentional simplicity that Marcus had mocked at dinner. The furniture was indeed from the 1980s, not because I couldn't afford newer pieces, but because well-made furniture from that era had lasted longer than most marriages. The desktop computer he'd ridiculed ran sophisticated investment tracking software that monitored a portfolio worth more than his house. I settled into my favorite reading chair, a wingback recliner I'd bought in 1987, and opened my laptop to review the numbers that would reshape Marcus's understanding of reality. The Schwab account dashboard loaded slowly on my older machine, but the figures that appeared would have made his expensive wine country weekend look like pocket change. Tesla Inc., 50,000 shares at current price of $318.47 equals $15,923,500. The original purchase price of $12 per share represented an investment of $600,000 spread across 8 transactions between 2012 and 2014. Every financial advisor had called it speculation. Every colleague had questioned my judgment. Even Emma had worried about her mother putting so much money into an unproven car company. But I'd understood something about electric vehicles that most people missed in 2012. As a chemistry teacher, I'd spent decades explaining battery technology, energy storage, and the inevitable transition from fossil fuels. When Elon Musk started talking about sustainable transport and energy independence, I recognized the scientific validity behind his vision. The Tesla position was just the beginning. Apple Inc. showed 15,000 shares purchased throughout the 2000s, now worth $2,847,750. NVIDIA Corporation reflected my understanding of computing trends. 8,000 shares acquired between 2016 and 19, currently valued at $3,768,400. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, a diversified portfolio built on research and patience rather than speculation and emotion. Total portfolio value, $28,394,167. The woman Marcus had mocked for watering down orange juice controlled liquid assets worth more than his lifetime earning potential. The pathetic penny pincher driving a 15-year-old Honda could buy his house with cash and barely notice the expense. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Thanks for coming to dinner, Mom. I'm sorry if Marcus seemed a little intense tonight. He's been stressed about work lately." Stressed about work. I pulled up Marcus's LinkedIn profile to refresh my memory about his professional situation. Regional sales manager at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, a mid-tier advertising firm serving local businesses in the Bay Area. His public posts celebrated small victories, like landing a restaurant chain account or exceeding quarterly targets by modest percentages. A deeper investigation revealed more interesting details. Marcus's mortgage on the Riverside house carried a 6.2% interest rate, suggesting he'd bought during a period when his credit wasn't optimal. Property records showed the purchase price of $847,000 with a down payment of only 5%, meaning they were paying mortgage insurance and barely building equity. His Lexus lease payments appeared on the credit monitoring sites I'd learned to navigate during my years of financial research. $689 monthly for a car he'd never own, chosen for appearance rather than value. Emma's BMW carried similar monthly obligations. Together, they were spending nearly $1,400 monthly just to project an image of success they couldn't actually afford. The wine country trip he'd bragged about had been financed through a rewards credit card that offered travel points but carried a 21.9% annual percentage rate on balances not paid in full. Marcus and Emma were living the leveraged lifestyle that looked impressive from the outside but created constant financial pressure behind closed doors. I opened a new browser tab and began researching Tesla's upcoming product announcements. The Cybertruck launch was generating significant media attention, and rumors about the next-generation battery technology suggested another period of substantial stock appreciation ahead. My position in Tesla was about to become even more valuable. But first, I needed to understand exactly how far Marcus's disrespect extended beyond private conversations with his brother. I spent the next morning making strategic phone calls to mutual acquaintances, ostensibly checking in with old friends, but actually gathering intelligence about how Marcus discussed my financial situation in social settings. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Carol Hendricks, my former teaching colleague whose daughter attended the same yoga studio as Emma, had heard Marcus describe me as Emma's charity case mother who can barely afford groceries. According to Carol, Marcus had suggested that Emma felt obligated to help support me financially, which created tension in their marriage about discretionary spending. Janet Morrison, whose husband worked in the same office complex as Marcus, reported overhearing him complain about family dinners where Emma's broke mother makes everyone feel guilty about having nice things. Marcus had apparently suggested that I deliberately played up my financial struggles to manipulate Emma into feeling sorry for me. The pattern was clear and systematic. Marcus wasn't just mocking my lifestyle in private conversations with Derek, he was actively spreading a narrative about my financial situation that positioned me as a burden on Emma's marriage and a source of guilt about their consumer choices. Each phone call revealed another layer of Marcus's campaign to establish himself as the generous son-in-law managing a difficult family situation. He'd created a story where Emma's mother was financially irresponsible and emotionally manipulative, requiring his patience and wisdom to handle appropriately. By Tuesday afternoon, I'd compiled enough evidence to understand that Marcus's disrespect wasn't casual mockery, but calculated character assassination designed to isolate me from my daughter and justify his contemptuous treatment. Time to begin phase 2 of my response. I called Emma that evening, timing the conversation for when I knew Marcus would be home from work and likely listening to our discussion. "Hi, sweetheart. I wanted to thank you again for Sunday dinner. The turkey was excellent. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Mom. Marcus was really proud of how it turned out. He should be. It was restaurant quality. Speaking of restaurants, I was wondering if you and Marcus might be free for dinner this weekend. My treat, of course." A pause, followed by Emma's careful tone. "That's sweet of you, Mom, but you don't need to spend money on expensive dinners. We could just have you over again." Perfect. Marcus had trained Emma to protect her poor mother from unnecessary expenses, even when her mother offered to pay. Actually, I was thinking of somewhere special. Maybe that new steakhouse downtown that got the review in the Chronicle. I heard their wine selection is exceptional. Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, are you sure? That place is really pricey. Maybe we could find somewhere more casual." I could practically hear Marcus in the background, probably making gestures about my financial limitations and the importance of protecting me from embarrassing situations. "I think I can manage one nice dinner, Emma." It's been a while since I treated my daughter and son-in-law to something special. Well, if you're sure, but we could split the bill, or Marcus and I could cover it, and you could get us back some other time. Nonsense. I invited you, so dinner's my responsibility. Let me make reservations for Saturday at 7, the steakhouse on Montgomery Street. After we hung up, I imagined the conversation between Emma and Marcus. He probably expressed concern about my ability to afford such an expensive restaurant, maybe suggest they should quietly pay the bill to avoid embarrassing me. The groundwork was being laid for a revelation Marcus would never see coming. Wednesday morning, I drove my faithful Honda to downtown San Francisco and parked in front of the Tesla showroom on Van Ness Avenue. The contrast between my modest vehicle and the gleaming Model S sedans in the display windows would have amused Marcus if he'd been there to witness it. The sales representative who approached me was young, enthusiastic, and clearly trained to qualify customers based on appearance and initial presentation. His name tag read Jason, and his smile dimmed slightly as he took in my bargain store clothing and sensible shoes. "Good morning. Can I help you with information about our vehicles? I'm interested in learning about the Model S Plaid. I understand it's your highest performance sedan." Jason's expression brightened, though I could see him calculating commission potential against my apparent financial capacity. "Absolutely. The Plaid is an incredible machine. 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, over 400 miles of range, the most advanced autopilot system available. It really represents the pinnacle of electric vehicle technology." He gestured toward a pristine white Model S with a price sticker showing $138,990 before options. "Of course, it is a significant investment," Jason continued carefully. "We do have financing options available, and there are federal tax credits that can help offset the cost." I walked around the vehicle, noting the premium interior materials and advanced technology displays. Everything about the car represented the future Marcus claimed to understand but had never bothered to invest in. "What would you say is the typical buyer profile for the Plaid?" Jason relaxed slightly, settling into what he clearly considered educational mode rather than sales pressure. "Usually tech executives, investment professionals, entrepreneurs who've built successful businesses, people who understand cutting-edge technology and have the means to access the best electric vehicle available." "Interesting. And what about Tesla stock ownership? Do many customers also invest in the company?"
Some do, definitely. There's a lot of enthusiasm about Tesla's future prospects among our customer base. Though I have to say, the stock can be pretty volatile. Not for everyone. I nodded thoughtfully, pulling out my phone to check something. "Jason, I'm curious about your delivery timeline. If I decided to purchase today, how quickly could you have a Plaid ready for delivery?" His demeanor shifted instantly. Potential commission calculations replaced educational helpfulness. "Well, that depends on configuration options and current inventory. Are you thinking about a specific color or interior combination?" "Pearl white exterior, black interior, full self-driving capability. All available options." Jason consulted his tablet, fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I can actually put you in a car very similar to that configuration by next Tuesday. We have one coming off a canceled order that matches almost exactly what you described." "Perfect. Let's talk about the purchase process." For the next hour, Jason walked me through financing options, lease terms, and cash purchase procedures. His enthusiasm peaked when I mentioned cash payment, and he began treating me with the deference reserved for serious luxury car buyers. "So, if I understand correctly, the total with all options and taxes would be approximately $151,847? "That's correct. Would you like to discuss financing arrangements, or—" "Cash will be fine. I'll need to transfer funds from my investment account, which typically takes 1 business day." Jason's eyes widened slightly, but he maintained professional composure. "Excellent. Let me prepare the paperwork and we can get everything started." As he began processing the purchase agreement, I mentioned casually that I'd been a Tesla stockholder since 2012. "Really? That's fantastic. You must be pretty happy with how that's worked out." "It's been adequate," I replied with deliberate understatement. "I bought 50,000 shares when they were around $12 each." Jason stopped typing and stared at me for a moment, apparently calculating the current value of that position. 50,000 shares at $12. That's worth More than 15 million at current prices, I finished quietly. The silence stretched for several seconds. Jason was clearly reevaluating everything he'd assumed about the elderly woman in discount clothing who'd walked into his showroom. Ma'am, I have to say, that's one of the most successful investment stories I've ever heard. Congratulations. Thank you. I suppose it worked out better than I expected when I first bought the stock. As we completed the purchase paperwork, Jason asked about my background and what had led me to invest so heavily in Tesla during the early years. I taught chemistry for 35 years. Battery technology and energy storage were areas I understood better than most people. When I saw what Tesla was trying to accomplish, the science made sense to me. That's incredible foresight. Most people thought Tesla was too risky back then. Most people don't understand the underlying technology. They see an unproven car company instead of a sustainable energy revolution. By the time I left the Tesla showroom, Jason had my contact information and a promise to call when the car was ready for delivery. More importantly, I had purchase documentation for a vehicle that cost more than Marcus earned in 2 years. The drive home in my Honda felt different now, knowing it would be my last week with the faithful car that had served me so well. Not because I was ashamed of it, but because it was time for Marcus to learn that appearances could be deceiving. Thursday evening, I received a call from Emma that confirmed Marcus was proceeding exactly as I'd predicted. Mom, Marcus and I have been talking about Saturday dinner. Are you absolutely sure you want to go somewhere so expensive? We'd be just as happy at a nice casual place. Is there something wrong with the steakhouse I suggested? No, it's supposed to be wonderful. It's just that Marcus looked up their menu online and the entrees started around $60. With wine and appetizers, dinner for 3 could easily be $200 or $300. Marcus had done his homework, calculating the potential cost and worrying about my ability to handle such an expense without financial embarrassment. Emma, do you think I would invite you somewhere I couldn't afford? Of course not, Mom. It's just that we know money can be tight on a fixed income, and we don't want you to feel pressured to spend more than you're comfortable with. The careful phrasing revealed Marcus's coaching. Emma was protecting her mother's dignity while expressing concerns about financial overextension. I appreciate your consideration, sweetheart, but I think I can manage one expensive dinner without ending up in the poorhouse. Okay, if you're sure. Marcus just wanted to make certain you understood what you were getting into. Marcus wanted to make certain. The phrase crystallized everything I needed to understand about his perception of me and his role in managing family financial decisions. Please tell Marcus I appreciate his concern, but I've been managing money longer than he's been alive. After we hung up, I spent the evening reviewing my investment portfolio and planning Saturday's revelation. The Tesla delivery was scheduled for Tuesday, which meant I'd have the car available for follow-up demonstrations of my actual financial situation. But first, I needed to establish credibility through the dinner conversation. Marcus expected to witness my financial limitations in real time. Instead, he was about to discover that his assumptions about teachers, retirement, and fixed incomes were fundamentally flawed. Friday afternoon, I visited my local Schwab branch to arrange the fund transfer for the Tesla purchase and to prepare for Saturday evening's educational opportunity. My financial advisor, Patricia Wong, had been managing my account for 8 years and understood both my investment philosophy and my preference for maintaining a modest public profile. Vivian, I have to say, buying the Tesla feels like a well-deserved celebration of your investment success. You've been driving that Honda for as long as I've known you. The Honda has served me well, but it's time for an upgrade. I'm also planning a dinner tomorrow night that might require some financial documentation. Patricia raised her eyebrows with interest. Documentation for a dinner? Family situation. Someone needs to understand that appearances can be misleading. Ah, the son-in-law situation you mentioned a few months ago. Patricia remembered my previous comments about Marcus's attitude toward my lifestyle choices. I'd mentioned his assumptions about my financial situation during one of our quarterly portfolio reviews. Exactly. I think it's time for some clarity about my actual circumstances. Patricia printed several documents that would serve my purposes: current portfolio summary, year-to-date dividend income statement, and a historical performance report showing the Tesla position's appreciation over 12 years. These should provide adequate evidence of your financial capacity, she said with a slight smile, though I suspect the Tesla purchase itself will make the point quite effectively. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made San Francisco feel magical. I dressed carefully for dinner, choosing the same modest clothing style that Marcus associated with financial struggle. The contrast between appearance and reality would be more dramatic if I maintained the visual expectations he'd established. The steakhouse buzzed with weekend energy when I arrived 10 minutes early. The Maître d' recognized quality despite my understated appearance and seated me at the reserve table with professional courtesy. The restaurant's atmosphere radiated expensive sophistication, from the hand-cut crystal stemware to the imported leather banquettes. Emma and Marcus arrived precisely on time, both dressed in their finest dining attire. Marcus wore the same navy suit he'd worn to Thanksgiving dinner, while Emma looked elegant in a black dress I recognized from their anniversary photos. "Mom, this place is beautiful," Emma said as the host guided us to our table. "Are you sure about treating us tonight?" "Absolutely certain. I've been looking forward to this all week." Marcus scanned the menu with obvious concern, clearly calculating potential costs and wondering how to manage the situation diplomatically. His expression grew more troubled as he absorbed the price structure. "Vivian, this is incredibly generous of you," he said carefully, "but please don't feel obligated to order expensive wine or anything like that. Emma and I are perfectly happy with whatever fits your budget." The patronizing concern was delivered with smooth sincerity, positioning Marcus as the thoughtful son-in-law protecting his mother-in-law from financial embarrassment. "Marcus, I invited you to dinner because I wanted to celebrate something special. I'd like to share a bottle of good wine with my daughter and son-in-law." When the sommelier approached, I requested their wine list and spent several minutes reviewing the selections. Marcus watched with increasing anxiety as I considered bottles priced between $150 and $400. "The 2019 Camus Cabernet looks excellent," I announced. "We'll have a bottle of that." The sommelier nodded approvingly. "Excellent choice. That's one of our most popular selections from Napa Valley." Marcus's face went pale. The wine alone cost more than he'd probably expected for the entire meal. "Mom," Emma whispered, "are you sure about the wine? That seems pretty expensive." "It's a celebration, sweetheart. Sometimes you have to spend money to properly commemorate important occasions." As we waited for the wine service, I began the conversation that would reshape Marcus's understanding of reality. "I wanted to have this dinner tonight because I've made some important financial decisions lately, and I thought you both should know about them." Marcus leaned forward with obvious concern, probably preparing to offer advice about retirement financial management and the importance of conservative spending habits. "What kind of decisions, Mom?" Emma asked. I reached into my purse and withdrew the portfolio summary Patricia had prepared. The document showed my current account balance in clear, unmistakable numbers. "I've decided to make some changes to my investment strategy and lifestyle choices. I thought you should understand my actual financial situation." I handed the portfolio summary to Emma, watching her expression change as she processed the information. Her eyes widened and she looked up at me with complete confusion. "Mom, this shows almost $30 million. That can't be right." Marcus grabbed the document from Emma's hands, scanning the numbers with increasing disbelief. "This has to be a mistake," he said flatly. "These figures don't make sense." "Which part doesn't make sense to you, Marcus?" "All of it. Teachers don't accumulate this kind of wealth. Fixed incomes don't generate investment portfolios worth $30 million. There's been some kind of error." The sommelier returned with our wine, performing the traditional tasting ritual while Marcus sat frozen in apparent shock. I approved the selection and watched as 3 glasses of $200 wine were poured at our table. "There's no error," I said calmly. "Those numbers represent 35 years of careful investing, compound interest, and understanding technology trends before other people recognized them." Emma was studying the portfolio breakdown, her psychology training helping her process information systematically despite her emotional reaction. "Mom, this shows you own 50,000 shares of Tesla stock. At current prices, that position alone is worth over $15 million.
Correct. I bought that stock between 2012 and 2014 when shares were trading between $10 and $14 each. Marcus was shaking his head repeatedly, apparently unable to accept the information in front of him. Even if this is accurate, and I'm not saying it is, why would you live like you're broke? Why drive that piece of junk Honda, live in that tiny apartment, clip coupons if you're secretly wealthy? The question revealed everything I needed to understand about Marcus's value system and his assumptions about how wealthy people should behave. Because I understand the difference between having money and spending money, I built this portfolio by living below my means, investing consistently, and avoiding the trap of lifestyle inflation that keeps most people financially insecure. But what's the point of having money if you don't enjoy it? Marcus continued, his voice rising slightly. You could afford anything you want, and instead you choose to live like a pauper. The sommelier, hovering nearby, pretended not to notice the increasingly heated conversation at our table. I do enjoy my money, Marcus. I enjoy the security of knowing I'll never be financially dependent on anyone else. I enjoy the freedom of making choices based on preference rather than necessity.
And I enjoy the knowledge that my investment decisions were right when everyone else said they were wrong. Emma was still processing the documentation, occasionally looking up at me with expressions that cycled between amazement, confusion, and something that might have been hurt. "Mom, why didn't you tell me about this? I've been worried about your finances for years." The pain in her voice made me reconsider whether my approach had been fair to my daughter, who'd been genuinely concerned about my welfare rather than mocking my choices. "I'm telling you now, sweetheart. I wanted to wait until the right moment to share this information." Marcus suddenly straightened up as if a new thought had occurred to him. "Wait a minute. If you've been wealthy this whole time, why have you let Emma worry about your financial situation? Why have you accepted our concern and sympathy under false pretenses?" The accusation carried implications about deception and manipulation that completely reversed our actual family dynamics. "Marcus, when exactly have I asked for your concern or sympathy? When have I requested financial assistance or complained about money problems?" He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again as he realized he had no examples of me requesting help or expressing financial distress. "You've let us believe you were struggling," he said finally. "I've never told you I was struggling. You assumed I was struggling based on my lifestyle choices and your opinions about what retired teachers should be able to afford." The distinction was crucial, and Emma was beginning to understand the implications. "Marcus," she said quietly, "Mom never asked us for money or complained about expenses. We just assumed she was having financial difficulties." "Because she drives a 15-year-old car and lives like she's poor," Marcus protested. "What were we supposed to think?" "You were supposed to ask questions instead of making assumptions," I replied. "You were supposed to consider that people might have reasons for their choices beyond financial limitations." The wine was excellent, but Marcus seemed unable to appreciate anything about our dinner experience. He kept staring at the portfolio documents as if they might change if he looked at them long enough. "This changes everything," he mumbled. "Changes what, exactly?" "The way we've treated you, the things I've said, the assumptions we've made." Emma reached across the table and touched my hand. "Mom, I'm sorry if we made you feel like we didn't respect your choices. I just genuinely believed you were having trouble making ends meet." "You have nothing to apologize for, sweetheart. Your concern came from love and caring. That's very different from mockery and condescension." Marcus caught the implication immediately, his face flushing with embarrassment or anger. "Are you saying I mocked you?" "I'm saying you made assumptions about my intelligence, my financial planning abilities, and my circumstances based on superficial observations. Whether that constitutes mockery is for you to decide." Our appetizers arrived, providing a welcome interruption to the increasingly tense conversation. The restaurant's bustling atmosphere continued around us, but our table felt isolated by the weight of revelations and recriminations. As we began eating, Marcus seemed to be struggling with fundamental assumptions about social status, wealth, and the relationship between appearance and financial reality.
"I don't understand why you would choose to appear poor when you could afford to live well," he said eventually. "I do live well, Marcus. I live exactly the way I prefer to live. The difference is that my idea of living well doesn't require impressing other people or displaying wealth through consumption. But people judge you based on appearances. They make assumptions about your success and capabilities. Yes, they do. And those assumptions reveal more about their character than mine." Emma was listening to our exchange with growing understanding of dynamics she'd never fully recognized. "Marcus, are you saying you judge people based on what they drive and how they dress?" "Everyone does that to some extent," he replied defensively. "It's natural human behavior to make assessments based on visible indicators." "Natural, perhaps, but not necessarily accurate or fair," I observed. "The question is what you do with those initial assessments. Do you test them against additional information, or do you treat them as permanent facts?" Marcus spent the remainder of our dinner in subdued contemplation, occasionally asking questions about my investment strategy, but mostly processing the revelation that his financial assumptions had been completely wrong. As we prepared to leave, I handed him one final document. "What's this?" "Tesla purchase agreement. I'm taking delivery of a Model S Plaid next Tuesday." He stared at the paperwork showing a cash purchase of $151,847. "You bought a $150,000 car?" "I did. After 12 years of investment appreciation, I thought it was time to enjoy some direct benefit from my Tesla stock ownership." The ride home in Marcus's Lexus was quiet, with Emma asking occasional questions about my investment approach, while Marcus seemed lost in thought about everything he'd learned. As they dropped me off at my apartment building, Emma hugged me warmly. "Mom, I'm proud of you for building such financial security, and I'm sorry we didn't understand what you'd accomplished." Marcus's farewell was polite but subdued. The man who'd mocked my 15-year-old Honda was now confronting the reality that I could buy 10 of his leased Lexus sedans without affecting my financial position. As I watched them drive away, I reflected on the evening's revelations and their likely impact on our family dynamics. Marcus would need time to process his misunderstandings, but the foundation had been laid for a very different kind of relationship going forward. Tuesday morning would bring the Tesla delivery, and with it, the final visual proof that appearances could be deceiving in ways Marcus had never imagined. Tuesday morning dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for taking delivery of a car that would serve as the final punctuation mark on Marcus's education about making assumptions. I dressed in my usual modest attire, knowing that the contrast between my appearance and my new vehicle would create maximum impact when the moment was right. Jason from the Tesla showroom called at 9:30 to confirm the delivery appointment. "Mrs. Chen, your Model S Plaid is detailed and ready for pickup. We've completed all the pre-delivery inspections and loaded your preferences into the vehicle's computer system." "Excellent. I'll be there at 11 o'clock as planned." The Honda made its final journey to the Tesla showroom with the reliability that had characterized our 15-year relationship. As I parked next to the gleaming electric vehicles in the lot, several sales representatives glanced through the windows with expressions of mild curiosity about the elderly woman in the economy car visiting their luxury automotive temple. Jason met me at the entrance with professional enthusiasm that had evolved considerably since Saturday's revelation about my Tesla stock ownership. Word had apparently spread through the dealership about the chemistry teacher who'd made $15 million on a single stock position.
Mrs. Chen, welcome back. I'm excited to show you your new car. The pearl white Model S Plaid sat in the delivery bay like a technological sculpture, its sleek lines and minimalist design representing everything Tesla had accomplished in electric vehicle development. The absence of traditional automotive elements like a front grille gave it an almost alien appearance compared to conventional luxury sedans. "She's beautiful," I said, walking around the vehicle with genuine appreciation for the engineering achievement it represented. "Wait until you experience the performance capabilities," Jason replied, opening the driver's door to reveal the minimalist interior dominated by a 17-inch touchscreen. "Would you like to start with the technology overview, or shall we take it for a test drive first?" "Let's drive. I'm curious to experience what $15 million in stock appreciation can buy." The next hour transformed my understanding of automotive capability. The Model S Plaid accelerated with violent silence that pressed me into the leather seats while the speedometer climbed toward illegal velocities in seconds. The regenerative braking felt like the car was connected directly to my intentions, slowing smoothly without traditional brake pedal pressure. But beyond performance, the vehicle demonstrated technological integration that felt decades ahead of traditional automotive design. Climate control, navigation, entertainment, and vehicle settings flowed through intuitive touchscreen interfaces, while the autopilot system monitored traffic with sensors that perceived road conditions better than human vision. The full self-driving capability you selected represents Tesla's most advanced autonomous technology, Jason explained as we returned to the showroom. Software updates will continue improving the system's capabilities over time, essentially making your car more capable as the technology evolves. As we completed the delivery paperwork and Jason explained charging procedures and maintenance requirements, I found myself thinking about Marcus's reaction when he discovered that his mocking commentary about my 15-year-old Honda had been replaced by cutting-edge electric vehicle technology worth more than his annual salary. The drive home in the Tesla felt like traveling in a quiet spaceship, with the traditional automotive noise replaced by wind whisper and the subtle hum of electric motors. Every traffic light provided an opportunity to experience acceleration that would embarrass most sports cars, while the advanced autopilot system managed highway driving with precision that eliminated the fatigue of manual vehicle control. I parked the Model S in my assigned space at Oakwood Gardens, where it looked profoundly out of place among the modest economy cars and aging sedans that reflected the apartment complex's middle-income demographic. Several neighbors emerged from their units to examine the unexpected addition to our parking area. "Mrs. Chen, is that your new car?" asked Dorothy from 3B, a retired bank teller who'd always been friendly during our occasional conversations in the laundry room. "It is indeed. I decided it was time for an upgrade." "It's gorgeous. Must have cost a fortune." "About what I'd expect for cutting-edge technology and performance." Dorothy walked around the Tesla with obvious appreciation, occasionally asking questions about specific features and capabilities. Her enthusiasm was genuine and free from the judgment that had characterized Marcus's reactions to my lifestyle choices. "You know, I always wondered about people who drove old cars by choice rather than necessity," Dorothy mused. "My ex-husband used to say you could tell everything about a person by what they drove. Looks like he was wrong about that." The observation was more perceptive than Dorothy probably realized. People's relationship with material possessions revealed their priorities, but those revelations were often more complex than surface appearances suggested. That evening, Emma called with excitement that bubbled through her voice despite her attempts to maintain conversational composure. "Mom, Cheryl Martinez saw you driving a white Tesla today. She said it was the most expensive model they make. Please tell me she was mistaken about who was driving." "She wasn't mistaken. I picked up my new car this morning." A long pause stretched across the phone line while Emma processed confirmation of what her friend had reported. "Mom, you bought a Tesla. After driving the same Honda for 15 years, you bought the most expensive electric car available?" "The Model S Plaid, yes. I thought it was time to enjoy some direct benefit from my Tesla stock investment." "Marcus is going to lose his mind when he finds out." The comment revealed Emma's awareness of her husband's likely reaction and possibly some anticipation about his discovery of yet another miscalculation about my circumstances. "How Marcus reacts to my car purchase is his choice, sweetheart. I bought the Tesla because I wanted to experience the technology I'd been investing in for over a decade." "Can I see it? Would you mind driving over tomorrow evening so I can check it out?" "Of course. I'd love to show you some of the features and maybe take you for a ride." After we hung up, I spent the evening reading Tesla forums and owner groups, learning about optimization strategies and hidden features that weren't covered in the standard delivery orientation. The car represented more than transportation. It was a technological platform that would continue evolving through software updates and enhanced capabilities. Wednesday evening's visit to Emma and Marcus's house carried an entirely different dynamic than my previous appearances in their driveway.
The Model S drew immediate attention from neighbors walking dogs and children playing in yards, its presence announcing that someone in the Riverside Heights subdivision had acquired serious automotive technology. Marcus emerged from their front door before I'd finished parking, his expression cycling between disbelief and something that might have been admiration. The man who'd mocked my 15-year-old Honda was now staring at a car that represented the pinnacle of electric vehicle development. "Vivian, this is really your car?" "It is indeed. Would you like to take a look?" Emma joined us in the driveway, her excitement more genuine than Marcus's complicated reaction to discovering that his assumptions had been systematically demolished across multiple categories. "Mom, it's absolutely beautiful. How does it drive compared to the Honda?" "Somewhat differently," I replied with deliberate understatement. "The acceleration is more immediate, and the technology integration is quite advanced." Marcus walked around the Tesla with the careful attention of someone trying to reconcile contradictory information about reality. His expertise in luxury goods appreciation was evident as he noted details about paint quality, interior materials, and technological features. "This is the plaid model," he said, more to himself than to us. "I looked these up after Saturday's dinner. They start around $130,000 and can easily reach $150,000 with options." $151,847 as configured, I confirmed, though the full self-driving capability accounts for a significant portion of that cost. Emma opened the driver's door and slid into the seat, immediately fascinated by the minimalist interior design and the 17-inch touchscreen that controlled most vehicle functions. "This is like sitting in a spaceship. Where are all the normal car controls?" Tesla simplified the interface by consolidating functions through the touchscreen. It takes some adjustment if you're accustomed to traditional automotive design. Marcus remained outside the vehicle, apparently processing the implications of my Tesla ownership beyond the immediate purchase price. "Vivian, can I ask you something personal?" "Certainly." "When you bought Tesla stock in 2012, did you really understand what the company would become, or was it just luck that happened to work out?" The question addressed something that had probably been bothering Marcus since Saturday's revelation about my investment success. He needed to understand whether my financial achievement resulted from intelligence and foresight or mere speculation that happened to succeed. I understood the science behind electric vehicles and energy storage better than most people because of my chemistry background.
I also understood that transportation electrification was inevitable due to environmental concerns and technological advancement. But 50,000 shares, that was a massive bet on an unproven company. It was a calculated investment based on technological analysis and long-term trend evaluation. I didn't buy 50,000 shares immediately. I accumulated the position over several years as I gained confidence in Tesla's execution capabilities. Emma called from inside the car where she was exploring touchscreen menus and discovering various technological features. "Mom, this car can drive itself?" The autopilot system can handle highway driving and traffic situations with minimal human intervention. The full self-driving capability I purchased should eventually enable complete autonomous operation. That's incredible! It's like having a robot chauffeur. Marcus finally approached the driver's side and examined the interior configuration, his automotive enthusiasm overcoming whatever complicated emotions my Tesla ownership had triggered. "Would you mind if I sat behind the wheel for a moment? I've never been inside one of these." "Of course. Emma, would you mind moving to the passenger seat?" For the next 20 minutes, Marcus explored the Tesla's interface and functionality with the focused attention he typically reserved for luxury products he coveted but couldn't afford. His appreciation was genuine, uncolored by the condescension that had characterized his previous comments about my transportation choices. "The build quality is exceptional," he admitted, examining interior materials and technological integration. "Everything feels like it was designed by people who understand luxury automotive standards." Tesla has invested heavily in manufacturing precision and material quality. They needed to compete with established luxury brands while introducing completely new technology. As the evening progressed, Marcus's demeanor shifted from reluctant admiration to something approaching genuine curiosity about my investment philosophy and financial decision-making process. "Vivian, I owe you an apology for the things I said about your car and your financial situation.
I made assumptions that were completely wrong. The acknowledgement was delivered with apparent sincerity, though I suspected Marcus's contrition was motivated partly by recognition that his relationship with someone worth $30 million required diplomatic recalibration. Marcus, your assumptions reflected your values and priorities, not necessarily character flaws. People interpret others' choices through the lens of their own experience and understanding. Still, I was wrong to judge your lifestyle choices without understanding your circumstances or motivations. Emma emerged from the Tesla after exploring various settings and entertainment options, her excitement about the technological capabilities evident in her animated descriptions of features she'd discovered. "Mom, this car is like a computer on wheels. The entertainment system has games, streaming video, internet access. You could practically live in here." Tesla designed it as a technological platform rather than just transportation. The vehicle receives regular software updates that add new capabilities and improve existing functions. As we prepared to end the evening, Marcus asked one final question that revealed his ongoing struggle to understand my approach to wealth and lifestyle choices. "Vivian, now that you've bought the Tesla, are you planning other changes to your living situation? Maybe a nicer apartment or house?" "I'm comfortable in my current apartment. It meets my needs without unnecessary complexity or maintenance requirements." The answer clearly puzzled Marcus, who seemed to believe that wealth automatically necessitated lifestyle upgrades and conspicuous consumption. "But you could afford anything you wanted. Why not enjoy the benefits of your investment success?" "I am enjoying the benefits, Marcus. I'm enjoying financial security, independence, and the freedom to make choices based on preference rather than necessity. The Tesla represents a technological experience I wanted to have, not a status symbol I needed to display." The distinction was lost on Marcus, but Emma seemed to understand the philosophical difference between having money and being controlled by money. Over the following weeks, my relationship with Marcus evolved in ways that reflected his growing understanding of my actual circumstances and capabilities. The mockery and condescension disappeared, replaced by respectful curiosity about my investment strategies and financial planning approaches. He began asking detailed questions about Tesla's business model, autonomous vehicle development, and the company's expansion into energy storage and solar technology. Our conversations revealed that Marcus possessed genuine interest in technology and business strategy when he wasn't distracted by social status considerations and lifestyle competition. Emma noticed the change in her husband's attitude during our family interactions. The protective concern about her mother's financial limitations was replaced by requests for investment advice and admiration for my portfolio's long-term performance. "Marcus has been researching Tesla stock since he found out about your position. He's talking about buying some shares, though obviously not at your scale." "That's encouraging. Tesla represents more than just a stock investment, it's participation in the transformation of transportation and energy infrastructure." 3 months after my Tesla delivery, Marcus called to invite me to lunch, a first in our relationship that suggested he'd moved beyond mere tolerance of his mother-in-law towards something approaching genuine respect. We met at an upscale cafe near his office, where Marcus had apparently become comfortable being seen with the woman he'd once considered an embarrassment to their family's social standing. "Vivian, I wanted to thank you for being patient with me during my adjustment to understanding your real situation." "There's nothing to thank you for, Marcus. Learning and growing from new information is normal human behavior. I've been thinking about the assumptions I made and how wrong they were. It's made me reconsider other judgments I've made about people based on appearances." The personal growth was genuine, though I suspected Marcus's evolution had been accelerated by his discovery that treating wealthy people badly had potential social and professional consequences. What's prompted this reflection? Partly your example, but also some situations at work where I've realized I was dismissing people who might have valuable insights or capabilities. I missed opportunities because I was focused on surface indicators instead of underlying substance. The professional implications of his changed perspective were probably more motivating than philosophical concerns about fairness or accuracy, but personal growth often began with practical realizations rather than moral revelations. That's an important insight, Marcus. Some of the most successful people I've known have been those who looked beyond initial impressions to understand what others really offered. Our lunch conversation continued for over 2 hours, covering topics from investment strategy to family dynamics to Marcus's growing understanding of how his assumptions had affected his relationship with Emma and his potential for professional advancement. By the time we parted that afternoon, Marcus had transformed from the contemptuous son-in-law who mocked his poor mother-in-law into someone who understood that appearances could be deceiving in profound and expensive ways. 6 months later, Marcus purchased his first Tesla shares, a modest position that reflected his newfound respect for both the company and the chemistry teacher who'd understood its potential before anyone else. Emma reported that their marriage had improved significantly since Marcus stopped worrying about her mother's supposed financial struggles and began appreciating the family connection to someone who'd achieved remarkable investment success. "He brags about you now," Emma called me with amusement. "He tells people his mother-in-law was one of Tesla's earliest investors and owns a Model S Plaid. You've become a source of pride instead of embarrassment." The reversal was complete but predictable. Marcus's respect was calibrated to social status and financial achievement, rather than personal character. But at least his new understanding had eliminated the cruel mockery and condescension that had characterized our previous relationship. As I drove my Tesla through the streets of San Francisco, I reflected on the lessons Marcus had learned about assumptions, appearances, and the danger of judging people based on superficial observations. The journey from contempt to respect had been educational for both of us, though perhaps more transformative for him than for me. The Honda had served me well for 15 years, providing reliable transportation while I built the investment portfolio that would eventually buy the Tesla. Both vehicles had fulfilled their perfectly, just as my modest lifestyle had served the greater goal of financial independence and security. Marcus had learned that appearances could be deceiving, but more importantly, he'd discovered that his assumptions about teachers, retirement, and wealth accumulation had been fundamentally flawed. The woman he'd mocked for driving a 15-year-old car was building a fortune while he was building debt through lifestyle inflation and consumer consumption. The transformation was complete, the education delivered, and the relationship forever changed by the revelation that sometimes the person you underestimate the most is the one who understands the game better than anyone else. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.